the fight against hunger and poverty is not a matter of choice, but a matter of priority for me. But where do I get those helps? I have a very vibrant youth population, 70% below the age of 30. To all of us here, investment in education, investment in health, and investment in food security. Cheaper financing, the risk in various African countries, putting us on a better and more progressive arrangement to prioritize food security and the agricultural reforms.
All right, welcome back. We've got Demola Oshodi here with us. He is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Protocol. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
So, good to see you after several years, as a matter of fact.
You haven't changed a bit.
Thanks. So, for your role, what happens? You travel with the President?
Well, I do a lot of travel with the President, but also do other things on the background, as protocol is quite broad. Arranging meetings, being involved in dignitaries coming in, also a lot of traveling ahead of the president, in many cases representing the president, not as a president, but being in an event, conference, doing my research and findings for recommendations for president and for the State House staff. So a lot of it is backrolled.
But this also combines foreign affairs, duties, and things like that.
Absolutely. My passion is foreign affairs. Protocol has a lot of, it's surrounded with foreign affairs. Most of the people in Protocol are in foreign affairs, so that synergy is also possible.
So, the president in G20, so many try to reconcile what's going on. Did he just go there as invited, or was there adequate prioritization and preparation for Nigeria to go there? What can you tell us about this?
He was invited. Nigeria was invited for the G20. We're not a member of the G20, though we do seek membership. The president was invited. He was also invited for last year's G20 summit, also in India. So Nigeria is a huge, it's a huge interest for a lot of international relations. Nigeria is the natural leader and giant of Africa. So you can't have a big global a meeting and not have Nigeria present and the Nigerian president. So the president was invited. He gave a good speech on issues around facing the global south, the poor part of the world, and the challenges and what the people in the north, the west, can do to help alleviate that. He talked about the challenges in Nigeria regarding poverty, governance, and also issues around multilateralism. Nigeria getting good place on the seat of the United Nations as a permanent member. Nigeria working with the G20, especially with Lula da Silva, the president of Brazil's Global Alliance Initiative on Poverty and Hunger. And also Nigeria fighting for equity and fairness in the system, especially with the tax, global tax system. For instance, if you're a Nigerian entrepreneur and sells something online or receives something online, the government may not receive the tax. Amazon or Shein or some other online service will receive the tax. That country will receive the tax. So they need to rechange that, rejig that to ensure that we as entrepreneurs in Nigeria, or the global south, take benefit of this. You produce things, you sell things, you buy things, and the tax is not remitted to our country, where things are produced in many cases.
We're trying to change that?
Yes.
So that if they sell things here, we get a tax here.
Absolutely. The government gets the tax, but the way, the online digital market is structured, it's not in the favor of emerging economies like Nigeria. So these are the things the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, advocated for.
So since that is still in the works, is there any, should I say, impact or benefit to Nigeria attending that summit?
It's massive. The G20 it's got 85% of the world's GDP population. It's got China there, you have India, you have America, you have Brazil, you have the UK. It is big, and we should and need to be on that table. The impact, the benefit for us, being an African giant, we can push our case. We can push for issues of diplomacy. We can push for greater say when it comes to agreement. We can also push for the interests of Nigerians in diaspora. We can fight our case regarding this tax shortfall that I just mentioned. We can also tell the world that we deserve to be a permanent member of the United Nations. It's a given. African Union has become a member of the G20. Nigeria also seeks membership of that union, and it's just a great opportunity to make that case with the president being there.
How seriously do you think we're being taken, though? I mean, when you look at, excuse me, a lot of our indices, people are not, very confident when they go out there. The story that, our country is, falling behind on a lot of indices, it's not boosting the morale of a lot of people. So knowing some of these things, I mean, of course, you also are very aware. Only recently, President Obasanjo was in the United States, giving that very, very scathing speech about where we currently are. I'm wondering, how does it all tally for us when we look at the realities back home, the challenges that we're currently battling with, terrorism, children out of school, indices in health, indices in education, and the fact that our GDP could be so much better? How does it all tally up in terms of, giving us a strong footing when we're making a case for our country?
I think these challenges are challenges, and they're very tough for Nigerians, especially the reform that the administration has taken and embarked upon. But all countries in the world have their own various unique challenges. Nigeria is going through a very tough reform process, and we hope and believe things are going to get better soon. But in the global space, we need to fight for our space. We need to fight to say, look, we may, be coming late in some regards, especially South Africa being the only African member of the G20. And why is South Africa the first and only member of in Africa that is a G20? It's because the time when they were negotiating the G20, Nigeria was a pariah state. We had military rule leading up to 1999. We were not on the table to negotiate. Our economy was not rebased, so we couldn't measure to say, we actually are stronger or larger than the South African economy. Of course, things have changed now. So we weren't there. So South Africa also had that moral ground with Nelson Mandela fighting for rights of countries. And South Africa has a very sophisticated market, unlike Nigeria. We're still quite not as diversified. We have an oil-producing country. So it's important to say, look, things have changed. Nigeria does deserve this seat and this position, regardless of our domestic challenges. And all countries have domestic challenges. I mean, you don't want to go through, what's going on in America or in UK or, in Brazil. So it's not unique to us, but the most important thing is how we overcome it. And that's what our role, and the role of the President Tinubu at such forums brings to the table. These are the challenges. This is how you can help us solve it. And this is how we, as a great country, can provide value for you and for the international community.
As much as this, it's good to go out there, fight for certain things to come to the country so we can benefit and move the economy forward. But where do we place the narratives coming through from our local manufacturers here who think that we're miles away from what we need to do to ensure that manufacturers and the economy is on a very strong footing such that when we go out there, we don't just tell the investors to come in here and look at the market and see it only as a market where they just want to get the resources, but policies that will benefit the people here, which should be central amongst all of this.
Well, I can speak to this on an international basis. The fact that manufacturers must compete in an open market economy, and that's what the reform of President Tinubu is trying to ensure. We need to remove subsidies that does not encourage competition or investment. We need to remove subsidies from areas of electricity, so investors can come in. So it's easier for manufacturers to have energy, to not depend too much on expensive diesel or petrol for the generator. We need to remove hindrances and make it attractive for Nigeria to be able to attract these people to manufacture. The Indian Prime Minister was here a few days ago, and India has over 30 billion, probably close to $30 billion in investments in Nigeria. They produce everything not everything. They produce a lot of the things we see on a daily basis, from Indomie to salt and so many things.
Sorry to jump in.
Yeah.
Speaking about we needing to remove subsidies so that people can come in, are we doing that with the information on ground here that already, as things are, I don't think people can refer to a point to any middle class right now, because they know that if there's any further talk about subsidy on electricity, businesses will crumble and several other things will go south. So are we thinking about all of those, or are we just looking to say, oh no, let's do this so that people can come in, without actually saying, listen, people back home are barely surviving with the way things are?
I totally get this, and it's not going to crumble. It's a phase. Other countries. I remember when Margaret Thatcher did her own reform in the UK, it was a lot of struggle. She fought everybody, especially the miners. You think about Boris Yeltsin and Gorbachev doing the reform, moving the USSR from Russia from a Soviet state economy to a free market economy. It was chaos. There was even a coup attempt. There was rioting. There was, and people were used to getting free bread from the government. It was subsidized food for the Russians. Yeltsin removed that, and Russians were in pain. And now the Russian economy is big.
So you see, the thing about those economies is this. Now look at ours and look at them.
Yes.
They have a very functional transportation system.
Yes.
They've got structures in place. So if they had that complaint, in spite of all the functioning structures, we don't have that here. So when we're removing those policies and you don't have, people can't even move from one place to the other, it's going to be a lot more hellish for us here than it was for them.
It was hellish for them there, and it's probably more, they went through a lot. They went through 20 years of major, major problem. And I can tell you for a fact, as a student of history, what they experience is nothing compared to what, I'm not undermining what we are experiencing here. Nothing. And I want to focus here on how it relates to in an international basis, because that's where I believe you brought me in for. So if you see what happened in Russia for 20 years of severe hardship, they had the Chechens trying to blow up the country. Because a lot of it was people who just fed up, and it was pent anger with the economic frustration. You go back to China also, when Zheng Jianmin came in after the Chairman Mao left. He opened up the economy. China too was suffering. People were running away and everything. The reforms were tough, and it took longer than what Nigeria is. Nigeria is already slightly going up, as tough as it is.
Are we?
Oh yes, the international organization will tell you that the reforms are tough and probably should be communicated better. But the foundation, oil prices are about to go down. I can tell you within a week or so, petrol station, the oil prices go down. This is reform that is taking shape. It's not going to be as tough as all the countries that went through. And nobody says reform is going to be easy. But we need to look at this on a larger, I believe, international context.
I get your point.
This is where we want to go.
The question I'm trying to ask is, while putting in those reforms, what are we doing, or do you see, since you're there, you might have information, because across the board, states, everywhere else, there has to be an equal investment and policy to ensure that we're doing something about putting in place a very, very functional transportation system, both land, water, sea, air, all of those things. But if you're focusing on, oh yeah, let's get this out, without some policy to compensate all of these things, it will take way longer for people to get up.
I agree. I mean, if you look at the government's policy on the CNG, the gas in the vehicle, it's a policy that took a very short time for them to think and implement. In its going out, transport vehicles in Lagos, especially, I can speak for Lagos, and parts of major cities, are already migrating to that. So there's a coordination of reforms that affects different facets. It's not where we want to be. But if you CNG, the gas thing is a big thing in India. I remember speaking to an Indian diplomat. They have a lot of their transport vehicles going on CNG, and India doesn't even produce gas. We even export gas to India. You understand? So it took India years to get to that stage. It's taking Nigeria, I believe, will take Nigeria a shorter period of time. So at the same time with this, importation of manufactured goods coming in from India and any place to provide that ability. But if we don't have a free market like any other advanced economy, if we don't have it, we're gonna be there continuously struggling to make
those free markets have got policies to protect their local investments and local businesses. Do we have them here?
I'm not an economist, but I can tell you right now that we are I know the Minister of Finance, Mr. Wale Edun, is open to speak with local manufacturers. So we have meetings with them, a lot coming in to the presidential villa and trying to meet their needs. Everything. There's going to be bottlenecks. There are going to be challenges, but the key is to have an administration that is ready to listen. You have a new minister of investment, Dr. Jumoke Oduole, that is meeting and ready to listen. You can't have something better than having somebody available to listen to your challenges. It is a challenge. It is tough. I get it. But all reforms, and I go back again, historically, is a phase, and it's a tough phase, but ultimately it puts the country in a stronger footing, more competitive footing, and our standard of living will go up in time.
Well, we're seeing the president engage on many fronts. I mean, first he was in Saudi Arabia, it was just last week or 2 weeks ago, and now he's in this G20 meeting. He was also expected in at the COP that's going on in Azerbaijan, that has just rounded off now. So I don't think he could make it as a result of this G20 meeting. But for you, what would you think that the takeaways will be when a lot of Nigerians are looking at this international travels and they're wondering, how is this going to better our lives? How is this going to better the lives of the generality of the country, moving forward? What do you think should be communicated to them?
I think they should look at it and feel that we have an active, engaging president that understands the need for Nigeria to open up its economy, Nigeria to be a major player in the table politically. It's very important Nigeria fights for social justice in many areas. It's very important Nigeria goes out there and tells the world, this is what we need to provide security for our people. This is what we need to provide security in ECOWAS, in West Africa, around Nigeria there, especially from Niger to Chad. We have security challenges. Nigeria is surrounded by French-speaking countries. It's important Nigeria to engage with the French President Macron. It's important Nigeria to engage with Biden's administration regarding security and equipment and expertise and intelligence. So we can't just sit down there and say, okay, come to us and let us, we're having challenges. You need to go to them. You need to tell them this is how you challenge it. You need to go to Brazil and tell them, look, we should be on this table because we bring value to you and we are power that should not be ignored. We need to go to the African Union and tell them your problem is not far from our problem, but we need to work together, and bring this continent away from where it was before. Debts, insecurity, issues of piracy, and also, of course, we have major players coming in now. We have the Russians mercenaries in the Sahel of West Africa and parts of East Africa, in the Congo, Brazzaville. So it's a global issue that affects our continent, our country, and all states in the country. You're not going to sit out in Abuja, fold your arms, and expect these people to provide solutions. You need to tell them you're serious.
Yeah, so whilst this is very important, I mean, that we have to be out there, how strong do you think that President Tinubu's credentials, I mean, how strong are they in terms of this issue of international relations, this issue of international engagement? Yeah. Usually when, presidents are coming into office, one of the things that are considered are their antecedents in terms of how they have engaged internationally before now. Yeah. How much experience do you think he has? Because it's not just a matter of, what the country needs to do. It's also a matter of, what levers we can leverage on to impress upon whoever it is we're engaging with, that we're serious with whatever it is we're asking for.
Well, it's a president that is very keen on multilateralism. We work very closely. Head of ECOWAS, the second tenure as head of ECOWAS, he doesn't take multilateral engagement lightly. ECOWAS, African Union, G20, the BRICS, United Nations. We, even in some cases, even the Commonwealth, Nigeria has to engage in multilateralism, and the president recognizes that. Now, if it says that, okay, we're not getting the results because of what we want, it's not because we're not trying. It's because we are trying. It's because we are pushing hard, and they need to recognize the fact that this is a new administration that means business in opening up our economy, providing security for the people, especially the Sahel coming in for the Boko Haram, the bandits, people, arms coming in from Libya, and issues like that. Issues that also concern other countries. Europe is concerned about migration.
The question I'm asking, I get it, but the question I'm really asking is about the president's experience in this regard.
Well, I think he's not a diplomat. I don't think President Buhari too was not a diplomat. Mm-hmm. Jonathan was definitely not a diplomat. So you learn on the job, and obviously he has international exposure. He's worked and lived in other parts of the world. You understand? So he has that exposure there. But no president usually are diplomats. So they
should have a team.
Of course, they have
who
a team.
Advise them.
Absolutely. And I believe that we do have a team. We have a great ambassador, Tuger, that has a former ambassador to Germany. Is always on ground. Is very much technical about places and advises the president should go through and what we should see. So you need a strong team as a president, a diplomatic team to push your agenda.
But
he's not a diplomat.
People thought that team didn't show themselves well during considering our handling of the Niger Republic and ECOWAS scenario. It was a bit shaky. We're not as strong and decisive as we ought to be.
I think that's a very complicated situation. It's not just a Nigerian problem in Niger. We had the French, we had the Americans. The Americans had troops there. The French had troops there. Even Germany had troops there. So it's not just Nigeria worked in the group of these nations that are interested in Niger and try to find a solution. We were quite confident that our path would have brought change, but it's now going to be a slower change, and those countries do know the impact and the trade relations and the historical relationship with cultural relationship with Nigeria.
But I don't know if you heard, many still say that Nigeria still hasn't taken its pride or place in the Committee of Nations. We're not as forceful as we used to be, even on the African continent, and we need to do more to rev up our stance in all of those grounds.
Nigeria could definitely do more, and we are doing more. But the most important thing right now, our foreign affairs, is regarding four things. It's issues of diplomacy, demography, and I can't remember the remaining two. But it deals with what interests, what benefits us. We're not just going to be there fighting for independence of African countries like colonialism. We did that in the past. We have our medals for that. Now we need to ensure that it benefits our economy, it benefits our people, our diaspora. That's one of the Ds, and development also. It brings that all to us rather than just going there and fighting for, causes that.
That's a foreign policy shift, are there?
Absolutely,
Okay. Demola Oshodi is a senior special assistant to the president on protocol. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, guys.
Let's have a look at some messages coming through. This is from Professor Enahena about the Edo State interview we had with the deputy governor. He says, Edo State citizens are struggling to weather the economic impoverishment created by previous governments. Our farms must be safe for farmers to return to their farms. Teachers should be employed expediently to ensure high quality of education. They must intervene in healthcare education to make them accessible. This, he says, will curtail the high illiteracy levels, reduce mortality rates, and this will increase the quality of life and reduce the burden of over-reliance on government.
Well, Victor Owo says, we will remind the Deputy Governor of Edo State for this. He just said on Sunrise Early Now, he said government will fix all the federal roads passing through the state. And he's copying me in his tweets.
Yeah.
I'll take note of it, Sir Victor.
Well, first it says, no doubt, Edo governorship election has caused deep-seated division, and politicians must be mature not to allow the divisions to endure after the court process is completed. The government and the state must take the views and voices of every Edo person to account. No voice must be left out. Well, thank you all for your messages and for watching as well today. We'll see you next time. I'm Chain Balloon, so goodbye.
Thank you. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. Have a great day.